I'm sitting here today with my Vietnamese coffee. It's a ritual I started 18 years ago. Once a week, I have Vietnamese coffee, and I've done that everywhere from Vietnam to Antarctica. And so I'm saying to you, settle back, relax, grab a coffee, because what I'm about to tell you, you're probably not going to like. So you might as well be comfortable. The video today is mainly aimed at women, and basically, you have it tough. And I'm sorry about that, but I didn't create this situation. Yes, you can blame patriarchy and all that kind of stuff. And yes, there's truth in that. But evolutionary processes are also to blame. Although the face is important, especially for females, today I'm basically concentrating on the body because the body is something that you can change. The face, yes, you can change it, but it involves usually cosmetic surgery and lots of pain and suffering. So if you want to go for the easier path, then the body is definitely the way to go. Every culture, every century, every continent, humans have been drawn to the same body shape in women. There's a few exceptions, but not because magazines told us to, not because of Hollywood, because of something far older, which is running the show. And most people have no idea what it is. So in this video, I'll be discussing aspects of body shape that are found to be attractive and whether or not there is a perfect female body from the point of view of attractiveness and human perception. You don't have to take my word for any of this. I'll give you a real world example. I had a female friend years ago who was over 40 and complained that she'd become invisible to men. She started going to the gym, her body composition and shape changed, and suddenly, miracle of miracles, she was no longer invisible. Numerous studies have shown that physical attractiveness is a more important predictor of attraction than other attributes like social skills, intelligence, or personality, at least in the short term. Research consistently shows that both men and women are equally affected by physical attractiveness. Though for long-term mating, women are also influenced by status. Working to give yourself a perfect body is an investment that pays off in both attraction and self-esteem. Some of the earliest research was conducted by Susan Sprecher at Illinois State University. Sprecher found that men are affected by non-physical characteristics like warmth, humor, personality, but only if the woman is already attractive. Now, that doesn't mean that we're shallow. Women, on the other hand, respond to non-physical characteristics in both attractive and unattractive potential partners, and slightly more so if he's unattractive. No, that doesn't mean women are nicer than men. These results suggest that a woman cannot easily compensate for an unattractive appearance with social status or warmth, at least in romantic context. Now, that's not the whole story, but it is generally true. So for women, especially, being attractive enhances romantic interactions and provides a whole range of advantages in life. Creating a body in line with evolutionary principles, or even a vague resemblance to it, can enhance your life in so many ways. I've discussed in previous videos these facial characteristics found to be appealing, such as neoteny, which is juvenile features like a small chin or large eyes carried into adulthood. But over millennia, humans have developed a whole range of abilities to assess the suitability of a mate. Beauty is a cue to fitness, meaning fertility and the ability to produce healthy children, not gym fitness. Now, from a male perspective, he will want to find a female who is highly fertile with many reproductive years ahead of her. She will need to exhibit traits that indicate health and vitality so that children will also be healthy, capable of surviving, and in turn reproducing. If men choose only women past their childbearing age, they would be extremely unsuccessful at producing children and passing on their genes. So that doesn't usually happen. Now, I've mentioned before that between 30 and 34, female fertility declines to 85% of the rate seen in 20 to 24-year-olds. Between 40 and 44, it drops to just 35%. This is one reason why youth has universal appeal. One way males appear to assess fertility is by visually evaluating the distribution of body fat on the female body. It's an unconscious mechanism, and I'll explain how it works shortly. Human body shapes can be divided into three categories. So we have ectomorph, which is thin, mesomorph, which is muscular or athletic, and endomorph, which is heavy. Children and adults alike, regardless of gender, tend to attribute personality traits to these different body types. Mesomorphs are generally rated as having highly favorable traits, while endomorphs, fatter people, receive highly negative stereotypes. Ectomorphs, the thin people, particularly males, are also evaluated negatively, though female ectomorphs tend to be viewed more positively due to associations with health-conscious slimness. For women, being an ectomorph is an advantage, but being too thin is also viewed negatively. It's rather tragic that if you're an ectomorph, thin person, people will judge you as more likely to be a smoker, antisocial, and lacking in leadership abilities, based solely on your body shape. A mesomorph, athletic build, on the other hand, will be attributed a whole range of positive characteristics: sociable, a natural leader, likely to have a wide circle of friends. None of that may be true. Perhaps that's why most women prefer the middle figure shown here. The endomorph will be considered lazy, lacking willpower, untrustworthy, and likely incompetent, among many other negative qualities. Now, children as young as 6 show biases towards certain body builds. They seem to have a built-in template for the ideal body, which becomes pronounced as they approach puberty. They prefer mesomorphic builds over both ectomorphic and endomorphic ones, and children of all ages associate social stigma with the endomorphic build, fat people. Given that people make value judgments based simply on body build, where does this leave us in terms of the perfect body, especially a female body, when it comes to self-satisfaction and positive perception from others? So I've talked about the waist-to-hip ratio before. Evolutionary anthropologists have theorized that during periods of famine and plenty, the most reproductively successful females were those able to store surplus energy as fat. This extra fat, stored on the body breasts and buttocks, is considered attractive to males. It's also relevant to women, since they compete with other females for potential mates and are aware of what's preferred. Now, this theory is plausible given that women need a critical amount of body fat to initiate and maintain the menstrual cycle. However, simply being fat is not an attractive trait, except in cultures where it signals wealth, such as parts of India, though that's changing with the adoption of Western ideals. It's the distribution of that fat that enhances or detracts from female beauty. Fatness is generally only a positive attribute in countries where food is scarce. There it signals health, wealth, and high status. In the Western world, a slim, curvy body is preferred. The distribution of body fat, especially around the waist and hips, that's the waist-to-hip ratio, is one of the main features determining female attractiveness. The body mass index, or BMI, is another. The WHR is calculated by dividing the circumference of the waist by the circumference of the hips. Now, you can do this at home. Measure your waist in the smallest area below the rib cage and above the belly button. Then measure your hips at the largest extension of the buttocks. If your waist is 28 centimeters and your hips are 40 centimeters, your WHR is 0.7. Studies show that both men and women aged 18 to 85 regard normal weight female figures with a low WHR around 0.7 as more attractive and healthy than women with a higher WHR at the same or lower body weight. The WHR for healthy premenopausal women generally falls between 0.67 and 0.80. All of these are found to be attractive, but the ideal sits at about 0.7. A BMI of 19 to 20 is also maximally sexually attractive. The beauty of this, pardon the pun, is that even if you're carrying excess weight, you can still have a WHR of 0.7. It's the distribution that matters. If your waist is 42 centimeters and your hips are 60 centimeters, you still have a WHR of 0.7 and will still be considered attractive, though a slimmer woman with the same ratio will edge ahead. An overweight woman with a low WHR is judged more attractive than a slim woman with a high WHR, which shows that fat distribution is primarily what correlates with attractiveness. In essence, if you're overweight but curvy, you'll be more attractive than a slim woman with no curves. The average male WHR falls between 0.85 and 0.95. If you're female and your WHR is in the male range, you'll be considered less attractive, and increasingly so as the ratio approaches 1. For the ideal female body, aim to get your WHR down to 0.7 or 0.8. Now, due to high levels of estrogen, women commonly begin depositing fat on the lower body that's the thighs and buttocks, after puberty. This is because a critical amount of body fat is necessary to maintain the menstrual cycle, as I said before, and to conceive. Now, this extra fat is considered attractive when it creates the classic curved female or gynoid shape, also called the hourglass shape. The WHR is a measure of that shape. Research from the Netherlands showed that women with the WHR of 0.9 are 30% less likely to become pregnant than women with the WHR of 0.8. From an evolutionary perspective, it's no surprise then that researcher Devendra Singh found women with a WHR of 0.7 were perceived as more attractive than those of 0.8, and 0.8 more attractive than 0.9. A WHR of 1 was seen as the least attractive. The further you move away from 0.7, the further you move from the ideal female body. Investigation of Playboy centerfolds from 1955 to 1965 and Miss America winners dating back to 1923 showed that although body weight dropped over time, the WHR remained within a remarkably narrow range, suggesting that the preference for a low WHR persists across generations. In research conducted in Queensland, in Brisbane, my hometown, a large group of Brisbane school children aged 6 to 11 were shown male and female figures with varying waist to hip ratios and asked for their preferences. The preference for a WHR of 0.7 in women and 0.9 in men emerged strongly around age 10 and 11. Suggesting these preferences are inbuilt, but only triggered as humans approach puberty and hormones begin flooding the body. As we age, the waist-to-hip ratio gradually increases. This is one reason older women are generally found less attractive than younger ones. It's difficult to maintain an ideal body shape as you age. But as one of my special forces instructors once said about commando training, if it was easy, everyone would do it. Most people won't put in the work, which means maintaining a youthful low WHR gives you an edge that compounds over time. Aiming for a WHR between 0.67 and 0.8 will generally be considered attractive, but 0.7 is the ideal that both men and women find most appealing. A WHR of 1, where waist and hips are the same measurement, is considered the least attractive. Anything beyond that indicates a protruding abdomen, which both sexes find the most unattractive. It's rare for any woman to be born with a perfect body, but whatever body you have can be shaped through diet and exercise. The characteristics of the ideal body differ for men and women because our evolutionary development led to different attributes being valued in each sex. Now, just a word of caution. The average American woman is 5'4" and weighs 140 pounds. The average American model is 5'11" and weighs 117 pounds. Fashion models are thinner than 98% of the population. Don't even bother trying to achieve this. It's unnecessary. You can be highly attractive even when you fall far short of that extreme. Let's have a look at breasts. Studies have found that female figures with slender bodies, low WHR, and large breasts are rated as the most attractive, healthy, feminine-looking, and desirable for both casual and long-term romantic relationships. These characteristics are almost a template for the perfect female body. Large breasts consistently enhance attractiveness ratings for both slender and heavier figures, so as long as the WHR remains low. Polish research showed that women with large breasts and a small waist had higher levels of female reproductive hormones than women with other combinations, broad waist and large hips, narrow waist and small breasts, or broad waist and small breasts. This makes evolutionary sense. A low WHR, that's a curvaceous body, is believed to correspond to the optimal fat distribution for high fertility. These women are more fertile and therefore more attractive. They may also be healthier, given that a high WHR resulting from a bloated abdomen can be a sign of parasite infection. A high WHR in women can also predict menstrual irregularity, hirsutism, that's body hair, elevated triglycerides, diabetes, hypertension, heart attack, stroke, gallbladder disease, and cancers of the endometrium, ovaries, and breasts. So pursuing the ideal female body isn't just about looks. It can generally enhance your health. A study of Playboy centerfold models reported average bust, 90.8 centimeters, waist, 58.6 centimeters, and hip, 89.3 centimeters. This gives a waist to bust ratio of 0.64, roughly the same as the waist to hip ratio, and very close to the 36-24-36 figure that has been presented for years as the ideal hourglass shape. That 36-24-36 ideal results in a curvaceously thin female with a small waist and hips and large breasts. This is extremely difficult to achieve naturally. However, evolutionary research shows that a WHR of 0.7 and a WBR, waist to breast ratio of 0.7, are considered ideal. Visually, this can be represented as two equal inverted triangles. Unfortunately, only a small percentage of women are born with this combination of attributes. For everyone else, it's a near impossible goal to achieve naturally, but that doesn't mean you can't still look hot. Even through dieting and exercise, it's impossible to lose body fat without also reducing breast size. Breasts are composed mainly of fat, and that fat is reduced in line with fat loss throughout the body during any diet and exercise regime. From the viewpoint of maximizing attractiveness, it would seem that large breasts are optimal, but are they? It's a trade-off between biological attractiveness and societal perception. We're influenced by biology, but also by cultural norms. And one of the greatest influences on our expectations is television. Research has shown that television doesn't just reflect societal preferences, it shapes them. Studies by Kristen Harrison on television viewers' ideal body proportions found that the television worldview of the ideal female waist and hips could be described as relatively extreme. Thinner is better. In contrast, the television worldview of the ideal female bust is more moderate. Medium is ideal. Harrison's work was the first to empirically link the curvaceously thin female body ideal with media exposure. Researchers have also found that women with smaller breasts were rated as more competent, ambitious, intelligent, moral, and modest. Women with large breasts, however, were judged to have the opposite characteristics by both men and women. So medium breasts combined with a low WHR appear to be the best option for achieving both physical and social attractiveness. Large breasts can also be a practical disadvantage when pursuing fitness, especially for jogging. I have two friends who underwent breast reductions due to back pain and soreness from running. It's no surprise then that liposuction and breast augmentation, or reduction, depending on your starting point, are the two most popular cosmetic surgical procedures today. Many women turn to these options when diet and exercise alone can't close the gap. Since the pursuit of status and the emulation of status-rich people, television personalities, media figures, seems to be wired into the human psyche, and we also carry evolutionary pressures to seek mates who demonstrate high fertility and health through ideal WHR and WBR, it's no wonder women feel drawn toward the 36-24-36 ideal. This ideal is actually very close to research findings of the most preferred ratio, 34-24-34. Remember, it's a ratio. So you could be 40-28-40 or 53-37-53 and still be considered attractive, though a slimmer body with this ratio is most preferred. Something to note, if you are of Asian descent, a number of studies have shown that measurements closer to 32-24-32 are more in line with modern aesthetic ideals for Asian women. Body size, breast size, and WHR all interactively influence judgments of attractiveness, femininity, health, and age. And men and women generally agree in their assessments of bodily beauty. The perfect female body is the one generally considered attractive by the majority of people. Unless you were born with 36-24-36 measurements, diet and exercise alone may not get you there. Research suggests that a slightly smaller figure of 34-24-34 may actually be closer to what most people find most attractive and more achievable for many women. For some, cosmetic procedures become part of the equation, and that's a personal decision worth making carefully with a qualified surgeon. Alternatively, you can get relatively close through diet and exercise, if your genetics allow it. Some women simply have wider hips, broader shoulders, or feel they're too short or too tall. But you can make the most of what you have and still look great. The perfect female body is just an ideal to aim toward. You don't need the perfect shape to be considered attractive. A healthy diet, whether paleo or another approach that suits you, combined with regular exercise, can be transformative. Even if you're not perfect, you'll still look good and feel better about yourself. Your blueprint for the perfect female body. 1. Get your WHR to 0.7. This is the single most important number. A waist-to-hip ratio of 0.7 is universally found to be the most attractive, and it's associated with higher fertility and better health. Even if you're carrying extra weight, the right distribution matters more than the number on the scale. 2. Aim for a WBR of 0.7. Your waist-to-breast ratio matters too. Medium breasts combined with a small waist hit the sweet spot for both physical and social attractiveness, biologically appealing without the negative stereotypes associated with very large breasts. Number 3, target a BMI of 19 to 20. A slimmer body with the right ratios is consistently rated as the most attractive. You don't need to be underweight, just lean enough to let your natural curve show. Number 4, build a mesomorphic frame through exercise. Athletic, toned bodies are attributed the most positive traits by both men and women, and at every age. Strength training and cardio will move you towards this build while improving your WHR. And remember, our hunter-gatherer ancestors got by happily for millennia without obsessing over the perfect body. They were too busy hunting, fishing, gathering, dancing, and enjoying their lives. Maybe we've just got too much time on our hands and not enough dancing. In the next video, I'll be looking at the perfect male body.